Marissa was 3 steps from her car when the man collapsed in front of her. Not fell. Collapsed. There's a difference. The rain hammered down hard enough to blur the world, but she could see him clearly now, on his knees in the empty parking lot, one hand pressed against his shoulder where his white shirt had turned black with blood. She froze. Keys digging into her palm. Every survival instinct screaming run. It was midnight. The cafe was locked behind her. The street was empty except for the 2 of them and the rain erasing everything else. The man tried to stand, failed, then looked up at her with eyes sharp enough to cut through the storm. "Don't run," he said, voice rough. "Please." Marissa's nursing training waged war with common sense. This was the kind of moment that ended badly. Late night. Isolated location. Stranger bleeding in expensive clothes that didn't belong in this neighborhood. But when he collapsed fully onto the wet pavement, unconscious, blood pooling beneath him faster than the rain could wash it away, her feet moved before her brain could stop them. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her jacket against the wound high on his shoulder. Her fingers came away slick and warm. Gunshot. Clean through. Whoever fired knew exactly what they were doing. "Can you hear me?" She checked his pulse. Too fast. Shock setting in. His eyes fluttered open, focused on her face with startling intensity. "Name," she demanded. "I need your name." "Ricardo." No last name. Just Ricardo. She tried to pull him upright, but he was easily twice her weight, all muscle and dangerous stillness. "Help me. I can't carry you alone." He moved then, somehow finding strength she didn't think he had. Together they staggered toward the cafe's back in trance, rain hammering their backs, blood trailing behind them in dark rivulets. When she fumbled with her keys at the kitchen door, Ricardo caught her wrist with surprising strength. "No hospitals," he said, and it wasn't a request. "If I go there, I die." Something in his eyes made her believe him. Against every rule she knew, Marissa made a choice that would destroy her quiet, invisible life. She dragged him inside. If stories like this pull at something deep inside you, if you're here because you believe in love that breaks all the rules, then subscribe to Undiluted Love Stories. Marissa's story is just beginning, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when she discovers who she really saved. Marissa worked fast with what little she had. Clean towels from the cafe supply closet. Disinfectant. Duct tape from beneath the sink. Her hands moved with muscle memory she thought she'd lost when she dropped out of nursing school 2 years ago to pay her mother's medical bills. The wound was high on his shoulder. Bullet entry clean, exit Messier. Professional hit. The kind she'd only seen in textbooks and crime dramas. Ricardo woke while she was cleaning the wound, hissing through his teeth but not pulling away. "You need a hospital," she said quietly. "I need you to finish what you started." She met his eyes. Cold. Controlled. Completely aware despite the blood loss. "Who shot you?" "Business associates." He said it like he was discussing the weather. A disagreement that got violent. Marissa's hands stilled. Business associates don't usually settle disagreements with bullets. Mine do. The simple honesty of it sent ice down her spine. But she didn't stop working. Couldn't. Whatever Ricardo was, whoever had done this, he was still bleeding in front of her. Still a person who would die if she walked away. She'd always been good at being invisible. Growing up in the south end of the city, you learned quickly that being seen meant being targeted. She'd perfected the art of drifting through spaces unnoticed, head down, voice soft, presence minimal. After her parents died in the accident 3 years ago, invisibility became survival. She worked the graveyard shift at the cafe, digitizing old records during dead hours when the building was empty. She supported herself and her younger cousin Sophia in a tiny apartment in Valenza's forgotten district. She was 24 years old, and she'd become a ghost in her own life. Until tonight. Until this man with blood on his expensive shirt and secrets in his eyes made her visible in the worst possible way. "You work here?" Ricardo asked, watching her hands as she bandaged the wound. "Night shift. Digitizing old files for the building management company." She didn't mention that the building was Valenti Tower, one of the most exclusive properties in the city. Didn't mention she'd been working there for 8 months, invisible among the wealthy ghosts who populated its marble halls. Dangerous work. Being alone at midnight. She almost laughed. More dangerous helping bleeding strangers. Yes. His voice went quiet. Serious. It is. Marissa finished the bandaging, her fingers brushing against skin that was warmer than it should be. Fever setting in. She stepped back quickly, putting professional distance between them. You need antibiotics. Rest. And probably a real doctor. Can't. Ricardo tried to stand, swayed dangerously. She caught him, and for a moment they were too close. Close enough that she could smell him beneath the copper of blood, something expensive and dark that didn't belong in her small, careful world. You can't go anywhere, she said, stepping back. It's past midnight. Where exactly are you planning to go? Before he could answer, police sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. Ricardo flinched. That was the first real sign something was deeply, dangerously wrong. The sirens grew closer, then faded past the cafe, heading toward the main boulevard. When Marissa looked back at Ricardo, his expression had changed. Harder. More calculating. Like he was making decisions she couldn't see. You should go home, he said finally. Forget you saw me. You're bleeding all over my cafe's kitchen. Little late for forgetting. Marissa. The way he said her name, he'd remembered it from when she told him while working, made her skin prickle. The people looking for me don't leave witnesses. The weight of those words settled between them like a verdict. She should run. Should call the police. Should do literally anything except stand here with a man who just admitted that helping him had painted a target on her back. But Marissa had spent 3 years being invisible, and invisibility hadn't saved her parents. Hadn't saved her from dropping out of school. Hadn't saved her from poverty or exhaustion or the slow erasure of everything she'd wanted to become. Maybe being seen, even by the wrong people, was better than disappearing completely. My apartment is 6 blocks away, she heard herself say. Can you walk that far? Ricardo stared at her like she'd just volunteered to jump off a bridge. You're serious. You'll die if you stay here. You'll die if you go to a hospital. She grabbed her keys, her heart hammering. So either you come with me, or I leave you here and call 911 anyway. For a long moment, Ricardo didn't move. Then slowly, painfully, he stood. 6 blocks, he said. They made it 4 before the black SUV turned onto their street, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. Ricardo's hand closed around her wrist, pulling her into the shadows of an alley. And that's when Marissa realized exactly how much danger she was really in. The SUV rolled past slowly, headlights sweeping the rain-slicked street like predators hunting prey. Marissa pressed against the alley wall, Ricardo's body shielding hers, his hand still wrapped around her wrist. She could feel his heart hammering against her shoulder, could hear his breathing, shallow, controlled, nothing like someone who should be bleeding out from a gunshot wound. The vehicle paused at the intersection. Marissa stopped breathing. Then it turned left and disappeared into the night, engine fading into the sound of rain. Ricardo didn't move for another 30 seconds. When he finally released her wrist, Marissa stumbled back, her legs shaking. Those were them, she whispered. The people looking for you. Yes. They're searching the neighborhood. Yes. Because of me. Her voice cracked. Because someone saw us leave the cafe. Ricardo's expression was unreadable in the darkness. Because I was careless. This isn't your fault. Then whose fault is it? She was surprised by the anger in her voice. You collapsed in front of me. You begged me not to run. And now she couldn't finish the sentence. Now she was what? A target? A liability? A dead woman walking? We need to keep moving, Ricardo said quietly. Your apartment isn't safe anymore. Then where? Somewhere they won't think to look. He pushed away from the wall, wincing. Trust me. Trust you. Marissa almost laughed. I don't even know your last name. Good. Keep it that way. They moved through the rain like ghosts, taking back alleys and side streets Marissa didn't know existed. Ricardo navigated the city's hidden pathways with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every shadow, every escape route. 20 minutes later, they stood in front of Valenti Tower. Marissa's heart stopped. No, she said. Absolutely not. I work here. If anyone sees me. No one will see you. Ricardo pulled out a keycard she hadn't seen him carrying. Private entrance. Executive floor. Completely separate from the building's main security. How do you have access to? The words died in her throat as understanding crashed over her. Valenti Tower. Executive access. The expensive clothes. The way he moved through the city like he owned it. Oh God, she whispered. Who are you? Ricardo swiped the card. The private entrance clicked open. Someone who's about to answer a lot of questions you're not going to like. The executive elevator was all glass and steel, rising 60 floors in complete silence. Marissa watched the city shrink beneath them, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Ricardo stood behind her, his presence filling the small space. She'd worked in this building for 8 months. 8 months of digitizing files in the basement archive, of taking the service elevator, of keeping her head down among the wealthy elite who never looked twice at the cleaning staff and night workers. And now she was in the private elevator, heading to floors she'd never been allowed to access. The doors opened onto a penthouse that made her apartment look like a closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Furniture that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years. Art on the walls she recognized from her college humanities class, originals, not prints. Sit, Ricardo said, heading toward a bar in the corner. You look like you're about to pass out. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, brought one to her. Drink. It'll help with the shock. Marissa took it, her hands shaking. Whose place is this? Mine. Yours. She looked around the penthouse again, pieces clicking into place. You live in Valenti Tower. You have executive access. Her eyes widened. Ricardo what? He sat down across from her, grimacing as the movement pulled at his shoulder. Mancini, he said quietly. Ricardo Mancini. The glass nearly slipped from Marissa's hands. Mancini. The name was whispered in the news whenever bodies surfaced in the river. When politicians suddenly withdrew from races. When entire neighborhoods fell under new management overnight. Ricardo Mancini. Crime lord. The man the city feared to name out loud. She couldn't finish. Yes. You run. Yes. And her voice cracked. I brought you into the cafe. Into my world. You saved my life. Ricardo's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something beyond the cold control. Something that looked almost like regret. And now I've destroyed yours. Marissa stood up so fast the whiskey sloshed over her hand. I need to leave. I need to go home, pack my things, get Sophia and... Sophia. Ricardo's voice stopped her cold. Your cousin. 16 years old. Lives with you on Morrison Street, apartment 3B. Attends Valenza East High School. Walks home alone every Tuesday and Thursday after debate club. The blood drained from Marissa's face. How do you? I know everything about you, Marissa Cruz. He said it gently, but the words hit like bullets. I've known since the day you started working in this building 8 months ago. The room tilted. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm invisible. You were never invisible. Ricardo leaned forward, his expression intense. You were the only person in this entire building who looked at the security footage no one else bothered to check. Who noticed patterns in the files no one else cared about. Who stayed late 3 nights in a row last month digitizing records that had been ignored for years. You were watching me. I watch everyone who works in my building. Marissa's voice rose. This is your building? Valenti Tower is one of 17 properties I own in this city. He said it like he was discussing the weather. The files you've been digitizing? They're mine. The security system you bypass every night to use the executive bathroom on the 42nd floor because the basement facilities are broken? I authorized that access. Marissa felt like the floor was crumbling beneath her feet. All those months of being invisible. Of drifting through the building like a ghost. Of believing no one noticed her existence. He'd been watching the entire time. Why? She whispered. Because you're careful. Precise. Quiet. His eyes never left hers. Because you're the only person in this building who doesn't fear me, not because you're brave, but because you never knew who I was. And now I do. Now you do. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications neither of them wanted to speak aloud. Finally, Ricardo stood, moved to the window overlooking the city. The men who shot me tonight were the DeSanto brothers, he said. Rival family. They've been testing my territory for months, and tonight they made their move. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to understand what you've walked into. He turned to face her. They saw you help me. They saw us leave together. And now they think you're important to me. But I'm not. I'm nothing to you. Something flickered across his face. You saved my life, Marissa. In my world, that makes you everything. Before she could process that, before she could ask what he meant, Ricardo's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his entire expression changed. What? Marissa asked, fear crawling up her spine. What is it? Surveillance just picked up 2 vehicles circling your apartment building. His voice was deadly calm. They're looking for you. Marissa's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, her whole world crashing down around her. Sophia, she whispered. Oh God, Sophia is there. She's home alone. She's not there. Ricardo was already moving, pulling out his phone, making calls with the efficiency of someone commanding an army. I had her picked up 30 minutes ago. She's safe. Marissa's head snapped up. You what? I sent a security team to your apartment the moment we left the cafe. Your cousin is currently in a safe house with 2 of my best people. She thinks it's a gas leak evacuation. She's scared but unhurt. The relief was so intense Marissa thought she might be sick. Then the rage hit. You had no right. I had every right. Ricardo's voice cut through her anger like a blade. Those men would have taken her to get to you. They would have hurt her to send me a message. I don't take chances with collateral damage. She's not collateral damage. She's my family. Then you should be thanking me for keeping her alive. The cold truth of it silenced every protest on Marissa's tongue. He was right. God help her, he was right. Ricardo crossed the room, stood in front of her. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but no less serious. You can hate me later, he said. You can scream, fight, curse my name when this is over. But right now, you listen. The DeSantos believe you matter to me. That makes you a target. That makes you leverage. And if they get their hands on you, he stopped, something dark crossing his face. You don't want to know what happens then. So what do I do? Marissa's voice sounded small even to her own ears. I can't go home. I can't go to work. I can't even see my own cousin without putting her in danger. You stay here, under my protection, until I handle this. Handle this. She almost laughed. You mean kill them? Ricardo didn't deny it. Welcome to my world, Marissa Cruz, he said quietly, where kindness is a weakness, and saving someone's life is a death sentence. He turned back to the window, silhouette sharp against the city lights. And Marissa realized with cold certainty that she'd crossed a line tonight that could never be uncrossed. She'd saved the most dangerous man in the city. And now she belonged to him whether she wanted to or not. Outside, the rain continued to fall. And somewhere in the darkness, the DeSanto brothers were hunting. Marissa woke to the sound of helicopters. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too soft, the sheets too expensive, the ceiling too high. Then memory crashed back, the rain, the blood, Riccardo Mancini's penthouse 60 floors above a city that suddenly wanted her dead. She sat up, her body aching from tension she'd carried through restless sleep. Pale morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, and beyond them, the city looked different. Wrong. She moved to the window, pressing her hand against the cold glass. Black SUVs lined the streets below like a military convoy. Men in dark suits stood at intersections, earpieces visible even from this height. Police cars sat idle at every major corner, officers inside looking nervous, uncertain. Welcome to lockdown. Marissa spun around. Ricardo stood in the doorway, wearing fresh clothes, black shirt, tailored pants, looking nothing like the bleeding man she'd dragged from the rain. The bandage on his shoulder was the only evidence last night had been real. "What's happening down there?" "I'm hunting." He moved to the window beside her, his presence commanding even in silence. "Every street, every business, every shadow in the city is being searched right now. For the men who shot you. For the men who made the mistake of thinking they could touch what's mine and walk away." The possessiveness in his voice sent a chill down her spine. "I'm not yours," she said quietly. "Tell that to the DeSantos." He gestured to the city below. "They already believe you are. Which means every enemy I have will come for you to get to me. Your opinion on the matter stopped being relevant the moment you opened that cafe door." The casual cruelty of it stole her breath. "So I'm just, what? A pawn? Bait? You're a complication I didn't plan for." His eyes met hers. "And complications in my world don't usually survive." Then why not just, she couldn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air between them. Why not just eliminate the complication? Ricardo's expression darkened. "Because despite what you think of me, Marissa, I don't kill innocent people. Especially not the one who saved my life." How noble. The sarcasm felt like armor against her fear. The crime lord with a conscience. Don't mistake gratitude for morality. He turned from the window. "I'm keeping you alive because it serves my purposes. The moment it doesn't." His phone buzzed, cutting off whatever threat he'd been about to make. He answered, his entire demeanor shifting into something harder. More dangerous. "Talk." Marissa couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she watched Ricardo's expression change. A flash of satisfaction. Something cruel behind his eyes. "Good. Bring him to the tower. Sublevel 3. He ended the call, then made another immediately. "Marco. I want everyone positioned. No mistakes. No witnesses except the one we're keeping alive." He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at his phone like it held answers to questions Marissa couldn't imagine. "They found one," he said finally. "One what?" "One of the men who attacked me last night." His voice was ice. "He's about to tell me everything he knows about why the DeSantos tried to kill me." "You mean you're going to torture him?" Ricardo looked at her then, really looked at her, and Marissa saw something in his eyes that made her understand exactly who she was dealing with. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." Ricardo left an hour later, his departure marked by a flurry of phone calls and armed men materializing in the penthouse like shadows given form. One of them, a massive man who introduced himself only as Marco, took position outside her door. "Boss says you don't leave this floor," Marco said, not unkindly. "Anything you need, you ask me." "I need to see my cousin." "Can't do that." "Then I need to talk to her." "A phone call. Something so she knows I'm okay." Marco hesitated, then pulled out a phone. 2 minutes. "Don't mention where you are. Don't mention the boss. Just tell her you're safe." The call connected, and Sophia's voice cracked through the line. "Marissa? Oh my God, where are you? These men came and said there was a gas leak and they took me to this apartment and no one will tell me anything and I've been trying to call you but—" "Sophia, breathe." Marissa's voice broke hearing her cousin's fear. "I'm okay. I'm safe. I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" "Marissa, what's happening? Why won't they let me leave? Who are these people?" "They're keeping you safe." "From what?" Marissa looked at Marco, who shook his head firmly. "From something I can't explain right now," she said carefully. "But I promise you, everything is going to be okay. I just need you to stay where you are and do what they tell you. Can you do that for me?" "I'm scared." "I know, baby. I know. But you're not in danger. Neither of us are. This is it's complicated. But it's going to be over soon." She hoped that was true. They talked for another minute before Marco gently took the phone back. "She's in good hands," he said. "Best safe house we've got. No one's getting to her." "Why?" Marissa asked. Why does he care what happens to some random girl he doesn't even know? Marco's expression was unreadable. Boss doesn't do random. If he's protecting her, there's a reason. Before Marissa could press further, Marco's radio crackled to life. Marco. Boss wants the girl brought down. Sublevel 3. Now. Marissa's blood went cold. What's on sublevel 3? Marco didn't answer. He just opened the door and gestured for her to follow. The elevator descended past the lobby, past the parking garage, into levels Marissa never knew existed. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway that looked nothing like the luxury penthouse above. Concrete walls. Fluorescent lights. The metallic smell of old blood barely masked by industrial cleaner. Marco led her through a security door that required 3 separate keycards. And then she saw him. The man from last night, one of the DeSanto soldiers, was tied to a metal chair in the center of a vast empty room. Blood dripped from his nose, his lips split, one eye already swelling shut. Ricardo stood in front of him, sleeves rolled up, knuckles bloody. He looked up when Marissa entered, something flickering across his face too quick to read. You shouldn't be here, he said. Then why did you send for me? Because you need to understand what your kindness cost. He turned back to the man in the chair. This is Carlo DeSanto, 26 years old. Soldier in his family's organization. Last night, he and his brother ambushed me outside a business meeting. Carlo spat blood on the floor. Fuck you, Mancini. Ricardo didn't react. He's going to tell us why the DeSantos broke 15 years of peace to try to kill me. Aren't you, Carlo? I'm not telling you shit. You will. Ricardo's voice was conversational, terrifying in its calmness, because the alternative is much worse than a few broken bones. He nodded to Marco, who pulled something from his jacket. Marissa's stomach turned when she realized it was pliers. Stop, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. You brought me down here for this? Her voice shook. To watch you torture someone? I brought you down here so you'd understand. Ricardo moved toward her, his bloodied hands catching the harsh fluorescent light. You think I'm a monster? Fine. But this monster is the only thing standing between you and men who would do much worse. This monster is why your cousin is still alive. Why you're still breathing. There has to be another way. There isn't. He was close now, close enough that she could see the cold fury in his eyes. You live in a world of laws and morality and second chances. I live in a world where weakness gets you killed and mercy is a luxury I can't afford. You want to survive this, Marissa? Then you need to understand which world you're in now. Carlo laughed, the sound wet and broken. She doesn't know, does she? Ricardo went very still. Shut up, Marco said. But Carlo kept talking, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. The girl doesn't know why we really came for you, boss. She doesn't know what you did. What you took. I said shut up. We weren't trying to kill you, Mancini. Carlo's ruined smile was triumphant. We were trying to send a message. And he looked at Marissa. She's exactly the message we wanted delivered. The room went silent. Marissa felt something shift, some fundamental piece of the puzzle clicking into place. What is he talking about? She asked. Ricardo's jaw clenched. Nothing. He's lying. Am I? Carlo leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. Tell her about the archives, Mancini. Tell her what she's really been digitizing for the past 8 months. Tell her why those files were so important that we'd start a war over them. The blood drained from Marissa's face. The files. The documents she'd been scanning, organizing, digitizing in the silent basement of Valenti Tower. She'd thought they were property records. Financial statements. Boring corporate paperwork. They weren't property records, she whispered. Ricardo's silence was confirmation. They were evidence, Carlo continued, enjoying every word. Evidence of every deal your boss has made, every politician he owns, every crime family's secrets he's collected for leverage. 20 years of information worth more than every drug shipment, every weapons deal, every dirty dollar in this city combined. And you gave him access to all of it, Carlo said, his eyes locked on Marissa. Every page you scanned. Every document you digitized. You've been building Riccardo Mancini the most dangerous weapon in organized crime. A complete map of everyone's sins. Marissa staggered back, the implications crashing over her like a wave. You used me, she said, looking at Ricardo. You didn't just watch me. You put me there. You gave me access to those files because you were invisible, Ricardo finished, his voice low. Because no one would suspect a night shift worker of being important. Because you were the perfect person to handle information everyone else wanted destroyed. Did you ever plan to tell me? No. The honesty hurt worse than a lie would have. So the attack last night wasn't random, Carlo interrupted. We've known about the archives for months. We just couldn't figure out who was digitizing them. Until last night, when one of our informants finally identified her. He nodded at Marissa, the invisible girl who wasn't so invisible after all. We weren't trying to kill Mancini, Carlo continued. We were trying to kill the project. And that meant killing you. The room spun. Everything, the attack, the blood, Ricardo collapsing in front of her, none of it had been coincidence. They'd been hunting her. And Ricardo had known. You let me save you, Marissa said, her voice hollow. You let me think it was chance. That I made a choice. But you knew they were after me. You knew I was already a target. Yes. You could have warned me. Protected me. Instead you used me to what? Build your empire. To survive, Ricardo said quietly. In my world, information is the only currency that matters. Those archives are the reason I'm still alive. The reason the other families haven't moved against me. You helped me build something they all fear. And now they all want me dead. Yes. Marissa looked at him, this man she'd saved, this monster wearing human skin, and felt something inside her break. I want to go home, she whispered. You don't have a home anymore. Ricardo's voice was gentle but absolute. The moment you touched those files, the moment you saved me in that parking lot, you became part of this world. There's no going back. Then what happens to me? I keep you alive. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something that might have been regret. Whether you want me to or not. Before Marissa could respond, before she could process the full horror of what she'd learned, alarms started blaring throughout the sublevel. Marco's radio exploded with panicked voices. Breach on the north side, multiple vehicles, they're coming in fast. An explosion rocked the building, so powerful it knocked Marissa off her feet. The lights flickered. And through the chaos, through the smoke beginning to pour through the ventilation, Carlo DeSanto started laughing. They're here, he said. My family's here. And they're going to burn this whole tower down to get what they want. Ricardo pulled Marissa to her feet, his face a mask of cold fury. Move, he ordered. Now. What about? He served his purpose. Ricardo pulled a gun from his shoulder holster and shot Carlo DeSanto once, execution style, without breaking stride. The sound echoed through the concrete chamber. Marissa didn't even have time to scream before Marco was pushing her toward the exit, before more explosions rocked the sublevel, before the reality of her new world came crashing down in fire and blood and smoke. The DeSantos weren't just sending a message anymore. They were declaring war. And Marissa Cruz, invisible, careful, nobody Marissa, was standing at the center of it all. The stairwell filled with smoke faster than Marissa thought possible. Marco pushed her ahead of him, one hand on her back, the other holding a gun that looked massive in the flickering emergency lights. Behind them, more explosions rocked the building's foundation, each one closer than the last. Keep moving, Marco barked. Don't stop, don't look back. Ricardo was somewhere behind them, shouting orders into his phone between bursts of gunfire that echoed through the concrete shaft. Marissa's ears rang, her lungs burned, and every instinct screamed that she was going to die in this stairwell. They burst through a door onto the parking garage level. Chaos. Men in tactical gear exchanged fire across rows of expensive cars. Glass exploded. Bullets sparked off concrete pillars. A Mercedes erupted in flames, the heat so intense Marissa felt it from 30 feet away. This way. Marco dragged her between vehicles, using them as cover. A bullet shattered the window inches from her head, and she screamed without meaning to. Then Ricardo was there, materializing beside them like a demon from the smoke. Blood streaked his face, not his own. His eyes were wild, calculating, terrifyingly alive in a way that made Marissa understand why people feared him. North exit is compromised, he said, breathing hard. They came with everything. 20 men, maybe more. The safe room, Marco started. They'll trap us there. Ricardo grabbed Marissa's arm, his grip bruising. We go up. Get to the roof. Extraction team is 3 minutes out. Another explosion, this one so close the ground buckled beneath them. Marissa fell, her palms scraping against broken glass. Ricardo hauled her upright with a strength that shouldn't have been possible for someone shot 12 hours ago. Stay on your feet, he commanded. You fall, you die. They ran. Through the garage, back into another stairwell, climbing while the building shook around them. Marissa's legs burned, her chest heaved, but terror kept her moving. Behind them, footsteps. Shouts. The sound of pursuit. Contact rear. Marco spun, fired 3 shots down the stairwell. Someone screamed. Someone fell. Marissa kept climbing. 40 floors. 50. Her vision started to blur, lungs screaming for air. Almost there, Ricardo said, and she realized he was half carrying her now, taking her weight without slowing down. Don't stop. Don't you dare stop. They burst onto the roof into cold morning air and chaos. A helicopter hovered 50 feet above, searchlight cutting through lingering smoke. Armed men in Ricardo's colors held defensive positions around the roof access door. Boss. One of them shouted. We need to go now, they're coming up both stairwells. Gunfire erupted from the door Marco had just slammed shut. Bullets punched through metal, forcing everyone into cover behind ventilation units and satellite equipment. The helicopter descended, wind whipping Marissa's hair into her eyes. Get her on first. Ricardo shoved her toward the landing skid. Hands reached down, pulling her into the helicopter's belly. She collapsed onto the metal floor, gasping, her whole body shaking. Marco came next, rolling into the cabin with practiced efficiency. Then more gunfire, heavier, sustained. The helicopter shuddered, alarms screaming. We're hit, the pilot shouted. Starboard engine, we need to go now. Ricardo. Marissa scrambled to the open door. He was still on the roof, firing back at the stairwell door as more DeSanto soldiers poured through. 3 of his men were down. The others were retreating toward the helicopter. Boss, move. Ricardo emptied his magazine, dropped it, loaded a fresh one without looking. Then he was running, full sprint toward the helicopter as it began to lift. He jumped. Caught the skid with one hand. Marco and another guard leaned out, grabbing his arms, hauling him into the cabin as bullets sparked off the helicopter's underbelly. The aircraft lurched, tilted sickeningly, then rose. The roof fell away beneath them. And Marissa watched Valenti Tower, the building where she'd worked for 8 invisible months, become a war zone 60 stories below. They landed on the roof of another building across the city. Safer, Ricardo said. One of his properties that the DeSantos didn't know about. Marissa didn't care. She stumbled out of the helicopter and vomited in the corner of the roof access structure, her body finally giving in to shock. When she finished, Ricardo was there with a bottle of water. She knocked it out of his hand. Don't touch me. Her voice was raw. Don't come near me. Marissa. You knew. The words exploded out of her. You knew they were coming for me. You knew I was a target. And you let me keep working in that building, scanning those files, completely unaware that every page I digitized was painting a bigger target on my back. If I'd told you, you would have run. Or worse, you would have frozen up and made mistakes. His voice was maddeningly calm. You were safer not knowing. Safer. She laughed, the sound unhinged. I was just shot at by 20 men with automatic weapons. The building exploded. Carlo DeSanto is dead because he was about to give information to people who would have used it to hurt you. Ricardo stepped closer. I killed him because keeping him alive served no purpose, and dead men don't leak intelligence. The casual brutality of it stole her breath. You executed him. Yes. Right in front of me. You needed to see it. His eyes were hard. You needed to understand that in my world, mercy gets you killed. Hesitation gets you killed. Sentiment gets you killed. I kept you alive tonight by being exactly the monster you think I am. I didn't ask you to keep me alive. I didn't ask for any of this. No, Ricardo agreed quietly. You asked to help a bleeding stranger. You made a choice based on compassion and morality and all those pretty ideals people have when they don't understand how the world really works. And now you're learning the price of kindness. Marissa wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up and discover this was all some horrible nightmare. Instead, she just stood there, shaking, covered in dust and other people's blood, while the man she'd saved watched her with eyes that held no apology. What happens now? She finally asked. Now we regroup. Assess the damage. Figure out the DeSanto's next move. I meant what happens to me. Ricardo was silent for a long moment. You stay with me, he said. Under guard. Under protection. Until this is over. And when is it over? When the DeSantos are dead. Or I am. The simplicity of it was horrifying. There's no third option? No negotiation, no. They tried to kill you, Marissa. They attacked my building. They declared war. His voice went cold. In my world, there's only one response to that. Before she could argue, Marco appeared from the roof access. Boss. We've got a problem. Ricardo's expression shifted instantly. Talk. The DeSantos' assault wasn't just about the girl or the archives. Marco pulled out a tablet, showed them surveillance footage. While we were evacuating, they hit 3 other locations. Your warehouse in the Port District. The restaurant on 5th. And, he hesitated. And what? And they took Angelo. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Explain, Ricardo said, his voice deadly quiet. Angelo was overseeing the transfer from the North Side operation. DeSanto soldiers ambushed the convoy. 6 of our men dead. Angelo's gone. Marissa watched emotions flicker across Ricardo's face. Rage, calculation, something that might have been fear. Who's Angelo? She asked. My brother, Ricardo said. The world tilted again. You have a brother? Had. The word came out like broken glass. If the DeSantos took him alive, it's because they want something. Information. Leverage. His hands clenched into fists. Or they want to send a message written in blood. He turned to Marco. Get everyone we have on this. I want every informant, every contact, every person who owes me a favor working to find him. I want the DeSantos' location within the hour. Boss, if this is a trap. I don't care if it's a trap. Ricardo's voice cracked like a whip. That's my brother. We get him back. Whatever it costs. Marco nodded and disappeared back through the roof access. Marissa stood there, trying to process this new information. Ricardo Mancini, crime lord, killer, monster, had a brother. Had family. Had someone he cared about enough to walk into a trap to save. Almost like a human being. You're wondering if this changes things, Ricardo said, reading her expression. If knowing I have people I love makes me less of a monster in your eyes. Does it? No. He met her gaze. It makes me more dangerous. Because a man with nothing to lose is unpredictable. But a man protecting what he loves. His smile was terrible. That man will burn the whole world down. The safe house was a penthouse apartment in a building Marissa didn't recognize. Luxury, like everything Ricardo owned. But with an edge of paranoia, reinforced doors, security cameras, armed guards at every entrance. Marissa was shown to a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment. Rest, Marco said. Doctor's coming to check you over. You've got cuts and bruises that need attention. I'm fine. Boss's orders. You get checked out. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. The moment Marco left, she collapsed onto the bed, still wearing her torn, bloody clothes. She meant to stay awake. Meant to plan, to think, to figure out how to escape this nightmare. Instead, she fell asleep and dreamed of explosions. She woke to voices in the next room. Ricardo's, low and intense. And someone else. Female. Angry. Absolutely insane, even for you. I don't recall asking your opinion. You involved a civilian. A completely innocent woman who had nothing to do with this world. And now she's in the middle of a war because you couldn't be bothered to. Careful, Lucia. The threat in Ricardo's voice was unmistakable. Marissa slipped out of bed, moved to the door. Through the crack, she could see them. Ricardo stood near the window, still wearing blood-stained clothes from the tower. The woman, Lucia, was tall, dark-haired, dressed in tactical gear that suggested she was more than just a concerned friend. Angelo's been taken because of your obsession with those archives, Lucia said. The DeSantos wouldn't have moved if you hadn't pushed them into a corner. The DeSantos moved because they're weak and desperate. The archives just gave them an excuse. And the girl? What's your excuse for her? Ricardo's jaw tightened. She was the best person for the job. She was invisible. Expendable. You used her and now she's... Lucia stopped. You care about her. Don't be ridiculous. I've known you for 15 years, Rico. I can tell when you're lying. Lucia's voice softened. She's not like us. She doesn't belong in this world. She's in this world now. There's no putting her back. Then what are you going to do with her? Keep her alive. Use her testimony to leverage the DeSantos when this is over. She's the only person outside my organization who's seen the full scope of the archives. That makes her valuable. Valuable, Lucia repeated. Is that what we're calling it? That's what it is. Then why did you carry her up 60 flights of stairs instead of leaving her for Marco? Why did you risk your life to get her on that helicopter first? Lucia stepped closer. Why are you standing here arguing with me instead of interrogating her for information? Ricardo's silence was damning. She saved your life, Lucia said quietly. And now you don't know what to do with that, do you? Because in our world, kindness without agenda doesn't exist. But she gave it to you anyway. Sentiment is a weakness. Then stop protecting her like she matters. She matters because the DeSantos think she does. That's all. Keep telling yourself that. Lucia turned to leave, then paused. Angelo wouldn't want you to start a war over him. You know that. Angelo doesn't get a vote. Ricardo's voice was ice. I'm getting my brother back. And when I'm done with the DeSantos, there won't be enough left of them to bury. Lucia left through a side door. Ricardo stood alone at the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. And Marissa, watching from the darkness, realized something that terrified her more than the guns, the explosions, the blood. Riccardo Mancini wasn't just protecting her because she was useful. He was protecting her because somewhere in the chaos of the last 12 hours, she'd become the one thing he couldn't afford to care about. And in his world, that made her the most dangerous liability he'd ever had. She slipped back to bed before he could catch her listening. But sleep didn't come again. Because tomorrow, she knew, Riccardo would go to war to save his brother. And somehow, Marissa would be right in the middle of it. Whether she wanted to be or not. Marissa woke to find Riccardo standing at the foot of her bed. She jerked upright, heart hammering, instinctively pulling the blanket closer. How long have you been standing there? Long enough to confirm you're a light sleeper. He held out a garment bag. Get dressed. We're leaving in 20 minutes. Leaving? Where? The DeSantos requested a meeting. His expression was unreadable. They want to negotiate Angelo's release. That's good, right? That means... It means they're setting a trap. He dropped the garment bag on the bed. But I'm walking into it anyway. And you're coming with me. Marissa's blood went cold. Why would you bring me to? Because they demanded it. You're part of the terms. Riccardo moved to the window, his posture rigid. They want to see the woman who's been digitizing their secrets. They want to confirm you're real, that you're valuable enough to use as leverage. So I'm bait. Your insurance. He turned to face her. They won't kill Angelo while they think they can use you to control me. And they won't hurt you while they think you're the only person who knows where the complete archive files are backed up. But I don't know where. They don't know that. His smile was cold. You're going to let them believe you're more important than you are. You're going to sit in that meeting, stay quiet, and look like someone worth keeping alive. And if I refuse? Then Angelo dies, and the DeSantos come for you anyway. At least this way, you have 50 armed men between you and them. Marissa wanted to argue, to scream that she never asked for this. But the exhaustion in Ricardo's eyes stopped her. Beneath the cold control, she could see fear. Real, human fear for his brother. Fine, she said quietly. But if this goes wrong, it will go wrong. He headed for the door. The question is how wrong, and whether we survive it. The dress in the garment bag was understated elegance. Black professional, expensive without being flashy. Shoes that actually fit. Even jewelry, simple pearl earrings that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Marissa stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked like she belonged in Ricardo's world. That terrified her more than anything else. A knock. Marco's voice. "Car's ready, miss." The convoy was excessive even by Ricardo's standards. 6 black SUVs, each filled with armed men. Bulletproof glass. Run-flat tires. Marco explained the security features like he was describing a luxury vacation. Marissa sat beside Ricardo in the center vehicle, watching the city roll past. "Where's the meeting?" she asked. "Neutral ground. The Monarch Hotel, downtown. Public enough that open violence would draw too much attention. Private enough for honest conversation." Honest. She almost laughed. Is anything in your world honest? Violence is honest. Ricardo didn't look at her. When someone points a gun at you, at least you know where you stand. It's the smiles and handshakes you need to worry about. They rode in silence for several blocks. Then Ricardo spoke again, his voice lower. "When we get there, you stay close to me. You don't speak unless spoken to directly. You don't react, no matter what they say or do. You're a statue. Understood? And if they threaten me? They will threaten you. That's the point." His hand moved to rest on the seat between them, close enough that she could feel its warmth. "But they won't touch you. Not while I'm breathing." The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a chain wrapping around her throat. The Monarch Hotel looked like old money and quiet power. Marble lobby. Crystal chandeliers. Staff who knew not to ask questions when men with guns walked through the front door. They took a private elevator to the penthouse level. The doors opened onto a conference room that was all floor-to-ceiling windows and calculated intimidation. A long table dominated the center. Guards lined the walls, half in Ricardo's colors, half in the DeSantos' dark green. At the far end of the table sat 3 men. The center one was older, 60 maybe, with silver hair and eyes like a snake. Power radiated from him in waves. "Mancini," he said, his voice carrying the weight of old money and older violence. "Punctual as always. Salvatore." Ricardo's tone was neutral, but Marissa felt the tension rolling off him. "Where's my brother?" "Alive. For now." Salvatore DeSantos' eyes slid to Marissa. "And this must be the famous archivist. The invisible girl who built you an empire." Every instinct screamed at Marissa to run. But Ricardo's hand touched her lower back, brief, steadying, and she forced herself to meet Salvatore's gaze. "Marissa Cruz," Salvatore continued, as if reading from a file. 24. Parents died 3 years ago in a car accident that wasn't quite an accident. Dropped out of nursing school to support her cousin. Worked, night shift at Valenti Tower. Completely unremarkable. Entirely forgettable. He smiled. "Until you became the most dangerous woman in this city." "She's not dangerous," Ricardo said. "She's a civilian who got caught in the crossfire. A civilian who's seen every secret we've buried for 20 years. One of the other DeSantos leaned forward, younger, violent energy barely contained. "A civilian who could testify to authorities about operations we've spent millions keeping quiet." "Which is why she's alive," Ricardo countered. "Mutually assured destruction. She talks, everyone falls. Unless she has a tragic accident." The young DeSantos' smile was vicious. "People die in this city every day. Touch her, and I'll kill everyone in your family." Ricardo's voice dropped to something subhuman. "Every cousin. Every uncle. Every child. I'll erase your bloodline from history. The temperature in the room plummeted. Salvatore raised a hand, silencing his son. Threats are unnecessary. We're here to negotiate. Then negotiate. Where's Angelo? Safe. Unharmed. For now. Salvatore stood, moved to the window. Your brother is leverage, Mancini. Just as the girl is leverage. The question is what we're both willing to trade. Name your price. The archives. All of them. Every file she digitized, every backup you've hidden. Salvatore's reflection in the glass was calculating. You give me that, I give you Angelo. Everyone walks away. No. Riccardo's response was immediate. No. Salvatore turned. Your brother's life isn't worth. My brother's life is worth everything. Riccardo's voice was steel. Which is why I know you're lying. You have no intention of letting any of us walk out of here alive. The room went silent. Salvatore's smile was slow, appreciative. Smart. As always. This was never about negotiation, Riccardo continued. You brought us here to make an example. Kill me, kill the girl, send Angelo back to my people in pieces. Show the other families that crossing the DeSantos has consequences. And yet you came anyway. Salvatore's voice held genuine curiosity. Why? Because you made a mistake. Riccardo's hand moved to the small of Marissa's back, and this time it stayed there. Possessive. Protective. You assumed the archives were the only thing I cared about. You assumed I'd sacrifice one person to protect information. And we were wrong? Completely. Riccardo pulled Marissa closer, his arm sliding around her waist in a gesture that was unmistakably claiming. This woman saved my life when she had every reason to let me die. She's shown me more loyalty in 12 hours than most of my own soldiers show in years. And you think I'd trade her for anything? Marissa's heart stopped. Every eye in the room was on them now. So here's my counteroffer, Riccardo continued, his voice carrying deadly certainty. You release Angelo. You back off. You forget the archives exist. And maybe, I let your family survive what's coming. And if we refuse? Then I burn your empire to the ground. Riccardo's eyes were ice. Starting tonight. I'll hit every business, every operation, every safe house you own. I'll turn your allies against you. I'll make you watch everything you've built crumble before I finally put a bullet in your skull. The young DeSanto laughed. One man against our entire family? You're insane. One man with nothing to lose. Riccardo's arm tightened around Marissa. You took my brother. You threatened the woman under my protection. You declared war. And now you're going to learn why people fear the name Mancini. Salvatore stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I believe you mean that. Every word. Which is why you're not leaving this building alive. Salvatore gestured, and suddenly 30 men materialized from corners and doorways, all armed, all aimed at Riccardo and Marissa. Riccardo's own guards raised their weapons in response. The conference room became a powder keg waiting for a spark. This is your plan? Riccardo asked calmly. Shoot us in a hotel full of witnesses? The Monarch is my hotel. The witnesses are my people. And by tomorrow, the story will be that you attacked first. Salvatore's expression was almost sympathetic. You're good, Mancini. The best I've ever seen. But you made the classic mistake. You cared about something. And caring makes you weak. No. Riccardo's voice was quiet, but something in it made Marissa's skin prickle. Caring makes me motivated. He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. In the distance, an explosion. Then another. Then a dozen more, each one closer, louder, shaking the building's foundation. Salvatore's face went white. What did you do? I told you this was a trap. Riccardo smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Marissa had ever seen. What I didn't mention is that I set my own trap first. While we've been talking, 50 of my men have been planting charges throughout your operations across the city. Your drug warehouses. Your money laundering fronts. Your safe houses where you keep your families hidden. Another explosion, this one close enough that the windows rattled. All of it, Ricardo continued, going up in flames. Right now. Salvatore's phone erupted with incoming calls. So did his son's. So did every DeSanto soldiers in the room. Chaos. You're insane. I'm motivated. Ricardo pulled Marissa toward the door, his gun suddenly in his free hand. You wanted to see how far I'd go to protect what's mine? Now you know. Release my brother, or I keep burning. Your choice. Stop him. Salvatore roared. But Ricardo was already moving. He fired 3 shots, precise, controlled, taking down the guards nearest the exit. Marco and the others returned fire, covering their retreat. Glass shattered. Bodies fell. The conference room became a war zone. Ricardo shoved Marissa through the door ahead of him, his body shielding hers as bullets chewed through the doorframe. Run, he commanded. They ran. Down the hallway, past hotel staff diving for cover. Into a service stairwell. Down, always down, while gunfire echoed above them and more explosions rocked the city outside. Marissa's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But Ricardo's hand never left hers, pulling her forward, keeping her upright. They burst into the hotel's service kitchen. Staff scattered. Marco was already there, phone pressed to his ear. Cars at the south exit, go go go. Out into an alley. Into a waiting SUV. Doors slamming. Tires screaming. The Monarch Hotel disappeared behind them, smoke rising from a dozen fires scattered across the downtown skyline. Marissa collapsed against the seat, gasping, her whole body shaking. You blew up half the city. Not half. Ricardo was breathing hard, blood on his jacket from a wound she hadn't seen him take. Just the half that matters to the DeSantos. You're insane. I'm effective. He pressed a hand to his side, wincing. And I just bought us time. Time for what? For them to realize I meant every word I said in that room. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something beyond the cold control. Something raw. Honest. I don't bluff, Marissa. When I say I'll burn the world down to protect someone, I mean it literally. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why risk everything for your brother? For me? We're not worth. You are. His hand found hers, squeezed once. You're worth exactly this much chaos. And the DeSantos are about to learn that the hard way. His phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then smiled. Angelo's free. They released him 10 minutes ago. He looked at Marissa. They believed me. Of course they did. Marco called from the front seat. You just declared war on the most powerful crime family in the city. Not war. Ricardo's smile was sharp as broken glass. Extermination. Outside the SUV windows, the city burned in a dozen places, smoke rising against the afternoon sky like funeral pyres. And Marissa Cruz realized with cold certainty that the man beside her, the man she'd saved from the rain, wasn't just a monster. He was the monster that other monsters feared. And now he'd claimed her as his in front of everyone who mattered. There was no going back from that. Ever. The safe house, a different one, Marco explained, sat on the edge of the city where old industrial buildings met the waterfront. Marissa watched from the penthouse windows as emergency vehicles screamed through distant streets, their sirens a constant wail beneath the night sky. 12 fires still burned across the city. The news was calling it coordinated terrorism. Gang warfare. The beginning of something the city hadn't seen in decades. They were calling it the end of peace. They had no idea how right they were. Behind her, Ricardo sat shirtless while a private doctor stitched the bullet graze along his ribs. He hadn't made a sound through the entire process, just stared at his phone as reports flooded in. Angelo was safe. Beaten, but alive. Already moved to a secure location outside the city. The DeSantos had lost 4 warehouses, 2 money laundering operations, and a safe house where Salvatore's sister had been staying. She'd escaped, but the message was delivered. Touch what's mine, and I'll take everything from you. Done, the doctor said, taping the final bandage. You need rest. Real rest. Your body can't. I'll rest when they're dead. Ricardo stood, dismissing him with a gesture. The doctor left, and suddenly the penthouse felt too small, the silence too heavy. Marissa turned from the window. How long? How long until what? Until they retaliate. Until they come for us again. She wrapped her arms around herself. Until this actually ends. Ricardo pulled on a fresh shirt, moving carefully around his injuries. The DeSantos are regrouping. Calculating losses. Trying to figure out how I moved so quickly. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, brought one to her. They'll strike back. Probably within 48 hours. But when they do, they'll be desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. People are dying because of this. Because of me. People were always going to die. He took a drink. The DeSantos started this when they tried to kill you. Everything that's happened since, every fire, every body, every building that's burned, that's on them. You really believe that? I know that. His eyes met hers. In my world, you strike first or you die. There's no middle ground. The moment they moved against you, they declared war. I'm just fighting it on my terms. Marissa sipped the whiskey, felt it burn down her throat. At the hotel. When you claimed me in front of everyone. When you said I was under your protection. She paused. Was that strategic? Part of the plan? Ricardo was silent for a long moment. It was necessary, he said finally. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. He moved to the window beside her, and they stood there in the darkness, watching the city burn in the distance. My brother called, Ricardo said quietly. While you were showering. He wanted to know if I'd lost my mind, starting a war over a woman I've known for less than 2 days. What did you tell him? That he's right. I have lost my mind. A muscle worked in his jaw. For 15 years, I've built my empire on cold calculation. No attachments. No weaknesses. No one important enough to use against me. And then you dragged me out of the rain and destroyed everything I'd carefully constructed. Marissa's heart hammered. I didn't ask to. I know. He turned to face her fully. That's what makes it worse. You didn't seduce me or manipulate me or try to get close for leverage. You just helped. Because that's who you are. Because you saw someone bleeding and your instinct was to save them, not calculate the cost. And now you hate me for it. No. His voice dropped. Now I can't afford to let you go. Because if the DeSantos believe you matter to me, and after today, they absolutely believe it, then you're the most valuable target in this city. They'll come for you. Again and again. Until they succeed or I stop them permanently. So I'm trapped. You're protected. He stepped closer. There's a difference. Is there? She looked up at him, exhaustion and fear finally breaking through her walls. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like a very expensive cage. It's a cage that keeps you breathing. And what happens when this is over? When the DeSantos are dead or defeated or whatever ending you're planning? Do I just, what? Go back to my apartment? Pretend none of this happened? No. The word was absolute. You can never go back. Not to that life. Not to being invisible. His hand rose, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I told you before, the moment you stepped into my world, there was no going back. I meant it. Then what am I supposed to do? Survive. His thumb brushed against her cheek, and Marissa hated how her breath caught. And let me keep you alive long enough to figure out what comes after. Before she could respond, Marco burst through the door. Boss. We've got a situation. Ricardo's entire demeanor shifted, the brief moment of vulnerability vanishing behind cold professionalism. Talk. DeSanto forces are mobilizing. Not just soldiers, everyone. They're calling in every favor, every alliance. Word on the street is Salvatore's putting a $5 million bounty on your head. Expected. And $10 million on the girl. The room went silent. Marissa felt the blood drain from her face. 10 million. They want her alive, Marco continued. They want her to testify about the archives in exchange for witness protection. or they want to use her to draw you out. Either way, he looked at Marissa with something almost like pity. Every mercenary, bounty hunter, and desperate criminal in the city is going to be hunting you. Double our security, Ricardo ordered immediately. No one gets within 100 feet of this building without clearance. And I want eyes on every known DeSanto associate. If they sneeze, I want to know about it. Already done. But boss, Marco hesitated. There's something else. One of our informants says the DeSantos aren't just coming for you. They're going after everyone connected to you. Family, friends, business partners. I don't have family except Angelo, and he's secure. I don't have friends. And my business partners know the risks. What about her cousin? Marco's eyes flicked to Marissa. Sophia Cruz. The safe house we have her in, it's good, but if the DeSantos figure out the location. Marissa's entire world narrowed to a single point. No. You said she was safe. You promised. She is safe, Ricardo said firmly. And she'll stay that way. Marco, move her. New location. Triple the guard. No one knows where she is except you, me, and the team protecting her. On it. Marco left. Marissa stood there, shaking, the reality of the situation crashing over her in waves. $10 million on her head. Sophia in danger. An entire criminal empire hunting them both. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't, this is too much. Marissa. She's 16. Her voice cracked. She's just a kid who lost her parents and got stuck with me, and now she's going to die because I made one stupid decision in a parking lot. She's not going to die. Ricardo caught her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. I swear to you, on everything I am, your cousin will not be touched. I will burn this entire city to ash before I let them hurt her. Why should I believe you? Because I keep my promises. His grip tightened. And because I understand what it's like to be responsible for someone who didn't ask to be part of this world. Angelo was 17 when our parents died and I took over the family business. He could have walked away, lived a normal life. But he stayed because I was his brother. Because family matters. Sophia's not your family. No. His voice softened. But she's yours. Which means she's under my protection whether she knows it or not. Marissa wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this monster wrapped in expensive clothes and casual violence actually cared about keeping a 16-year-old girl safe. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. I want to talk to her, she said. Right now. I want to hear her voice and know she's okay. Ricardo pulled out his phone, made the call. It connected, and Sophia's voice came through the speaker, scared but alive. Marissa? Oh my God, are you okay? The news is saying, there are fires everywhere, people are saying it's a gang war. I'm fine, baby. I'm safe. Marissa's voice broke. Are they treating you well? Have they hurt you? No, they're actually really nice. There's this woman Lucia, she's been teaching me self-defense. And they have good food and Netflix and, Sophia's voice dropped. But I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Why can't I come home? Because home isn't safe right now. Marissa looked at Ricardo as she spoke. But I promise you, the moment it's safe, we'll be together again. I promise. Do you trust these people? The question hung in the air. Did she trust Riccardo Mancini? The man who'd used her, lied to her, put her life in danger? The man who'd also protected her, fought for her, claimed her in front of his enemies? Yes, she heard herself say. I trust them to keep you safe. It might have been a lie. Or it might have been the most honest thing she'd said in 2 days. They talked for another minute before Lucia, the woman from the previous safe house, took the phone and confirmed Sophia was secure. When the call ended, Marissa felt like someone had cut her strings. She collapsed onto the couch, head in her hands. Ricardo sat beside her. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For destroying your life. For dragging you into this. He stopped. For a lot of things. Are you sorry enough to let me go? No. At least he was honest. They sat in silence while the city burned outside, two people who should never have met, bound together by blood and fire and choices neither of them could take back. At 3:47 a.m., the call came. Ricardo answered, listened, then smiled, cold and terrible. "It's done," he said. Marissa looked up from where she'd been dozing on the couch. "What's done?" "The DeSanto headquarters. The building where Salvatore runs his empire from." He stood, moved to the window. "I just had it destroyed." "You what?" 40 pounds of C4 planted in the foundation. Detonated remotely. He gestured to the window. "Look." Marissa joined him, and her breath caught. On the horizon, a massive fire bloomed against the night sky. Flames so bright they turned the darkness orange. Even from miles away, she could see the building collapsing, floor by floor, like a dying giant. "You blew up a skyscraper," she whispered. "I made a statement." His reflection in the glass was satisfied. "Dangerous. By morning, every criminal in this city will know that crossing me has consequences. The DeSantos wanted war. Now they have it." "How many people were in that building?" "Fewer than there should have been. I had it evacuated first." He glanced at her. "I'm not a mass murderer, Marissa. Just a very motivated one." She should have been horrified. Should have run screaming. Instead, she just stood there, watching the city shake under the weight of one man's fury. "They'll never stop coming for us now," she said. "Good." Ricardo's hand found hers in the darkness. "Let them come. Let them send everyone they have. By the time this is over, they'll remember why people fear the name Mancini." His phone buzzed. Another call. More reports flooding in. The building was gone. Salvatore had escaped, but barely. The DeSanto empire was in chaos. And standing in the penthouse, wrapped in shadows while the city burned, Marissa Cruz realized something that changed everything. She should hate Riccardo Mancini. Should despise him for destroying her life, for using her, for dragging her into hell. But when his hand tightened around hers, when she saw the exhaustion and determination in his eyes, when she remembered how he'd shielded her body with his own in that conference room, she realized hate wasn't the problem. The problem was that she was starting to understand him. And understanding monsters was the first step toward becoming one. Outside, the fire continued to burn. By morning, the city was shaking. And the war between Mancini and DeSanto had only just begun. Ricardo led her back to the couch as dawn began to break, painting the sky in shades of blood and smoke. "What happens now?" Marissa asked. "Now the DeSantos regroup. They'll come at us harder, smarter. They'll use every resource they have." He looked at her, and for the first time she saw genuine uncertainty in his eyes. "And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you survive it. Even if it destroys you? Especially then." His voice was quiet, honest in a way that terrified her. "Because you're the first thing in 15 years that's made me remember what it feels like to be human. And I'm not giving that up without burning the world down first." Marissa should have run. Should have demanded to be released, consequences be damned. Instead, she stayed. Because somewhere between the rain and the blood and the fire, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She'd become part of Riccardo Mancini's world. And whether that meant salvation or damnation, she was about to find out. The city trembled beneath the weight of their war. And it all began with 3 whispered words over a broken man in the rain. "Don't run. Please." She hadn't run then. And God help her, she wasn't running now. Somewhere in the ruins of the DeSanto headquarters, Salvatore DeSanto stood among the ashes of his empire and made a phone call. "I don't care what it costs," he said into the phone. "I want Riccardo Mancini destroyed. And I want the girl brought to me alive." On the other end of the line, a voice answered, cold, professional, deadly. "Consider it done." The real war was about to begin.